Good evening, my fellow minions. How are you today? So, today I'm going to be going over mines. Reason for this is because it is a map that is it's so common. You face it from tier 1 all the way to tier 10, and it pretty much so plays out similarly once you get up to about 4 and 5 and on. Now, so we're going to be taking a look at both the north and the south spawn, and we're going to be talking about what generally happens. Now, you'll see that I have all these pieces placed out on the board already. Okay, and these are general areas and things that the medium tanks and light tanks and heavies and where they usually go. So usually whenever you are starting, you usually see a mad dash the for the hill in regards to this spawn starting here. We'll actually delete that and change it to green. And you see this push even from the beginning. They all just kind of merge. And so it's generally the faster tanks getting to different points. So one of the first things that I like to do whenever I play mines, especially if I'm in a medium or a light tank, is I like to sit there and see and think what is faster than me, okay? And what allies are as fast, if not a little bit slower, than I am. So if I'm a medium or light tank, I will generally try to fight for this hill. So the one thing that you have to remember is whenever you come for this hill, that you need to continue to push your way through and get into one of your pockets. So if you're green side, you want to be over here. If you're red side, you want to get over here. And the reason for that is that these heavy tanks, and didn't mean to delete those, but these heavy tanks over here can sit there and they can move their way all the way up into here, and then they can put fire into your butt. So don't come in here and stop and then try to shoot or shoot at the other medium tank that got in here, right? You want to keep pushing through, and that way they have to overexpose to come shoot you up in this pocket, okay? And also, if you stop in this area as a medium tank, then you're actually hindering your team, because I mean you literally start a a tank pile up, a traffic jam, and Artie's already going to be pre-aiming there. I mean it's not going to be good for your team. So since Mines is so surrounded by the hill, one of the biggest things that you need to remember is that the hill does help with the game tremendously. And since you have this giant rock wall here, okay, with only a gap here, here, and here to shoot at things that are in this pocket, then this kind of the side of the board, and especially in this area here, is kind of sectioned off, right? So they have their own little private fight with very little influence between these guys here shooting at them, unless they're up in here, in which case they're not in this fight. They're trying to support this fight. Okay, so and then what'll happen is one side of the hill. Normally, I see the north spawn take this hill, and you'll see these guys just kind of fall off, and then you'll start to see these medium tanks move into positions kind of like this, right? And this guy will kind of come up like this. And they start putting crossfire into where the heavies are. But other than that, there's not much influence from the left-hand side of the map. So the hill becomes so dominant because it controls, I mean, literally everything from here all the way out to here and then some. And all of this is influenced by the hill. It's massive. So you have to be, I mean, the hill is important. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, because I've won plenty of games where we have not been able to win the hill, but still won because people have kind of wasted themselves. So, one of the greatest counters to taking this hill is, let's say that you get your tanks in there, right? Your medium tank, you come putzing along, you get up in here, and then you go to these firing positions, right? And you start to get shots into different areas. Okay, so one big thing is do you have enough heavies back here, right? So if your heavies are moving up and they're taking their positions, getting this rock, then no one's going to come through this gate because there's too many shots coming in at them. I mean, TDs can even sneak a shot in, especially this guy back here. If this rock isn't too tall, he might be able to get a small window of a tank passing through here. So if, let's say, you take the entire top of the hill, now you need to sit there and think, what can I do to aid my team? So your first thing is, and a lot of times I will be forced to do this, is we won't have enough tanks guarding our entrance. Okay, so but I'll have two or three medium tanks up here with me, maybe a light tank, and so I will kind of try to fight from here. Now, this is kind of a bad spot to be in because artillery just has clean shots straight at it. And this is not an arty safe area. And there's nowhere up here on this side, except for maybe this spot right here, that is arty safe 100%. So I will have to sometimes fight like right here to try to at least stay relatively arty safe, but it overexposes. So it's sometimes a choice that you have to make. I know it's actually incorrect choice, but in order to keep your team from moving up, or keep the enemy team from moving into where your team is, because they're all having a farm day. And coming in here, spotting out of these bushes, spotting out of this bush, popping a shot out over here, so on and so forth. You you have to be very careful about the entrance, because if you forget about the entrance, then they're just going to wipe you out. So there are quite a few areas in these along this ridge line that will allow you to be able to get shots onto the TDs, get vision onto the TDs, and be able to, I mean, if there's a heavy tank that's out, like maybe say here, this position right here, it can definitely hit them, depending on how much your gun depression is. Now that leaves you very exposed to TD fire, especially from this position, and those three right there. Um, so this position is really good for supporting and aiding your heavy side, because a lot of times what will happen is heavies they'll split themselves up. Okay, you'll get a few heavies coming here, and then the rest just want to come this way. Now the issue with this side is that there's not much artillery cover. Okay, now you have a hill that comes in here, so anybody that's got gun depression usually does halfway decent here. Which actually there's a fun little spot to sit, like right here, coming from north side. If you're in a good turreted tank, you can actually play right in here. Not already safe, but anybody that tries to poke up, you actually have this road that raises up, and it's enough to just keep your turret above, and you can generally do pretty well there. I've stopped the advance of enemy tanks into this because I've sat here while my tanks have made it in, and instead of fighting from here, I've fought from here, and then once Artie really zeroed in on me, I've just retreated and fallen back. Okay, in which case our heavy tanks have moved to where they need to go and stopped the advance of their heavy tanks. So, um, so that being said, that is another way to guarantee that the hill is still under control. But the heavy tanks will also try to split up and come into the town. So some mediums do this, and that is perfectly fine. I do not personally do this. I do not feel comfortable enough in the city, or in this little town. I wouldn't even call it a city. But a lot of times what you'll see is heavy tanks try to take this tower that's right here and try to side scrape off of it, and it leaves a lot of weird angles because you got your TD back here or TD sitting over here. I mean, it's just that you have that bush line that runs through here. And I mean, I've even seen the heavy tanks like sit back here and try to shoot into this corridor. So this kind of becomes a gridlock, all right, and it's kind of dependent on who takes this portion of the town. And a lot of times I will actually see the south side take this. And what will happen is you kind of trade this side for this side, and you'll see the medium tanks get all the way up into here. Okay, and so then they'll start putting side shots, which will then put your heavies back to here, and like locations back here. So, and then they move up and get into this pocket or side scrape off this building and then move up here. Um, so, and that's where these TDs come into play a lot. Not to mention if the hill is actually lost, and let's say that all these guys get taken out, um, then you don't have control of the hill. I will have to say that this side is much harder to fight from than this side of the hill. And that is because of just the way that it is. I mean, you have more cover here, and your TD line isn't as elevated, so they're kind of shooting up at an angle, where these guys are probably same level, right? So their shots can travel like all the way back here, where these guys cannot. So, I mean, you can roll back, and your cone of your area of being safe from TDs is like right about here, right? And you can actually roll back because this is more elevated than this area is, and this is all flat. So, I've been shot by TDs at this position that have gotten a lucky shot all the way out over here. Okay, and been killed. So just heads up about that. You almost have to use your cover as you roll up. So like if you want to get spot, you need to come up, get aligned where you think the TD is, and then drive up in a straight line. Now, it used to be that there were a little bit more rises and you could actually snake your way from over here into it, but since the map's changed, I've noticed that this becomes much more difficult to be able to apply fire from. Not to mention this position right here, which would normally be where their heavies are, if you're south spawn, is much harder to put shots into the back of them without getting exposed to this TD fire. So unlike this side right here, where I can take a medium tank and place it right here, and I have complete cover from these guys right here. So that is one thing to watch out for. So it is much harder to fight from this side of the hill than it is this. So that's not an advantage. That is just saying that be cautious when you are fighting from the south side. It can still totally be done. I mean, the disadvantage of the north spawn is that the TDs don't have as much of a platform to fight off of. Okay, they're all huddled into one little area, right? So, that being said, let's say that this plays out and these guys get pushed back. Let's say he just drops off because he's dead and they kill off that guy, but it's still an outnumber. And let's also play the scenario out that the north side has won the hill. So what'll happen a lot of times is that you'll get like 2 or 3 medium tanks up here and a light tank, and these guys will push up, they'll get into here, and these guys will get to here, and then you'll have a medium tank that'll kind of sit over here. These guys have won, and they usually get into a trading battle, and they're firing at these guys, and let's say that he's dead, and that dude's dead. But there's just too many TDs sitting back here for these two to push. So what'll happen a lot of times is they will the hill will determine this fight. So even though they can't shoot these two heavies, they can kind of box these guys off from support because they have no TDs back here, and now these medium tanks have a open range on these TDs sitting in the back. And one thing I want to note, if you're going to fight from this position right here, you need to be very, very careful that they do not have this side of the hill, because if they have this spot is obsolete. Do not even try to rise this hill and shoot at these tanks over here. Okay, or shoot them if they're up here, because what will happen is you will just get farmed from the hill. So it is very vital. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm saying about like why the hill is so heavily influential. So usually what will happen is if these guys will try to push up, right? And then these guys are caught out in the open, forming kind of I guess you would say like a zone of influence, right? Well, these TDs that are still up here will keep these guys from leaving the city. Okay, a lot of times, or you'll have the dude that'll sneak up, and then these two TDs just pound the crap out of this poor guy, right? So you have that, and the same thing happens when you get out here. These guys cannot push up with these TDs sitting back here. Okay, so there's almost like another little invisible line. And let's see if I can't do it this way. So you'll have, oh, that's really cool. So you have like a little heavily influenced area there, right? So like they can't pass this point because these TDs sitting back here, and these guys can't pass this point because of the TD sitting back here. So you get these stalemates, and it's usually determined by the hill. All right, so if red side controls the hill, they can start picking these guys off. Artillery can fire shots in and take these guys out, which then makes this line move up, right? Makes it move up. This tank has to fall back to over here. These guys can push up here and over. Sometimes you'll even have mediums sitting like out here. Put a green one right here. I've seen a lot of these guys try to take this position. a lot of times I see these guys kind of come down around and then snake their way across the side and then start fighting from here. And I've seen tanks fight from here. It's whatever position works better for your tank. So this is a great position to kind of help control this because you have cover, you're already safe. TDs can't fire at you, and the heavies would have to come to like a position right here, and even if they do, they can't hit you. So this is a really, 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 really good position if you have a good haul down turret to be able to help stop this, because this is all open ground, right, for you from this firing line. So, and generally from the TDs, especially this guy here, because he can see over this rock, right, and he can fire straight across. So be cautious if you're using the left-hand side of the map coming from the north. Same thing goes if you're using the south side and you're trying to go north. You do have to be very cautious of these TDs firing off at you. Okay, and then heavy tanks or medium tanks finding positions in here. It's not really this one, but in here, and firing off on your side. So this kind of gets isolated and is usually the fast lane to each other's bases, because you usually have a gridlock here and there's usually a gridlock over here, and whoever controls the hill is going to help out the most, right? I mean, they're going to be able to roll up, put a shot, and take out this TD, right? And then all of a sudden now your heavy tanks can push a little easier, right, knowing that there's not a TD back here. So but that is a general overview of what happens in the map and how it usually unfolds, or the way that I've seen. So, biggest tips about this map and the TLDR is that try to go for the hill. If you cannot take the hill, one of the best ways to get them off is to just starve them out. I know that seems crazy, but is to try to stay already safe. Don't let them get shots down on top of you. Okay, and then let your TDs do the work. Keep them proxy lit. I mean, run around this side of the hill, and then when they roll up, these guys are going to try to, no, not him, but these guys are going to try to sneak up like this and take shots. Well, there's a lot of bush cover. So these guys will get into position and be able to fire off a shot and then roll back. But if you can keep them permanently lit, oh man, it is a field day for your artillery, right? And your TDs. So that is going to be the best way to get them off the hill. Don't try to charge in after them, because you've still got to chew through this entire heavy line. So same thing goes for this side, right? You really want to spot these guys if they're up here, right? Because these TDs will take care of them completely, right? There is nowhere safe for them to run in your half of the hill. So for the north side. So take the hill, stay safe and smart in the hill. Right? If you know that there's a dude running around proxy spotting, remember that it's 50 feet, right? Then don't run up. Don't move up. Move over here, right? Just come over here and shoot at these heavies. These heavies will push around, right? And then they'll have this TD, and then in which case you might want to run over here to this side to try to help spot these TDs, right? And put some fire on these guys. That way your heavy tanks can move up, right? And then this dude that's proxy spotting will all of a sudden stop, right? Because now he's got tanks to shoot at in front of him, and then you can go back to doing what you're doing, because now he has to push back, and now you can go to this position, to this position, to this position, to that, and so on and so forth. So just try to take the hill, gauge how fast your tanks are, how fast their tanks are. Who do you think's going to take the hill, right? I mean, it's a coin toss, right? I mean, how many tanks are going to go? How many tanks do you think are going to win? How many are going to survive? I mean, even if you have 2 tanks survive, so long as they play smart, you're fine. Okay, so they can spot for you. They can help. This is a very grindy map, right? It is all about who survives, who stays safe, and who can help control the hill. Because I mean, you have to remember, I mean, if there are no heavy tanks here, these guys are just going to drive right up and just crush these mediums up here, right? So you have to remember that even if you're just sitting back here behind this rock, you are preventing them from rolling in, or at least preventing them from rolling in without these guys noticing. And usually what'll happen is, if they're halfway decent players and they actually pay attention to their mini-map, these guys will turn around and start fighting this guy, and all of a sudden they're in a pincer, right? And they're getting shot from 2 sides. He can't angle for you and angle for him at the same time. So, and you see this always unfold this way from tier 4 up. Now, tier 1, 2, and 3 is a bit of a turkey shoot. No one's got armor, everyone's got guns, and they just drive around like madmen. So, just Just remember, try to take the hill. If you can gauge which tanks are faster, then press the advantage or recognize their advantage and try to slow them down, stall them, get them to stop in this entrance if you can't take it. Okay, so I mean, like, roll up into this position and start putting shots. They might be too scared to roll forward, right? Cool. If they're too scared, that means that there's no tanks up here, right? Or that your tank made it up there and that there's not two tanks up here with that one enemy, right? So just try to recognize the hill. Always watch this fast lane and try to make sure. I mean, if you're in here, your best way of influencing this is to come back here, right? If you're a heavy tank and you're putzing around in here and you see that these guys are here, fall back to this rock right here. You'll get a side shot. These guys will come running up, screaming to go, hey, let's get Artie, right? And these guys are going to be like, woo, we're going to get Artie. And all of a sudden, you're just putting shots right into them. And they freak out. TDs open fire on them, and all of a sudden, they're in a position that they're outgunned. So this is a good point to fight from. You just have to be very cautious that these guys aren't as pushed up. But yeah. Also, that guy's here. Sit here. I guarantee you I have beaten Unicums doing this, right? Getting into this position, they can't get out. This is all open ground, right? They need to shoot these guys, but they can't really fall back without getting another corridor of shot. So I've seen people just blindly tunnel vision go for this. I do not recommend this position, especially if North has the hill. So yeah, but yeah, remember your fast lane. Remember, this is going to grind down. This is going to be a slow game. For such a tiny map, there's very little space to move. So just stay safe, stay alive, most importantly, and you'll do fine. So hope this helps. Thank you.